Harry S. Plinkett's The Star Wars Awakens review is as disappointing as The Force Awakens itself. After teasing us for months, Plinkett finally got off his fat ass and gave us what we wanted. But just like the movie, it was pretty good, but ultimately unsatisfying. Just like the food from the place down the street. It was tasty, but it gave me gas.
Oh God.
His review retread much of the Plinkett shenanigans we know and love, but without opening a can of whoop-ass criticism on this movie it so desperately deserved, and that we all craved.
I know what those are! Okay, that guy, he's gotta be a Sith. He's got like a cloak.
That sounds like you may have heard of this. I read this guy Mike Camino's article about the Star Wars ring theory.
Sure, the movie wasn't terrible, and certainly deserves praise for what it did right. For example, pretty much everything visual feels exactly like Star Wars. The movie was well crafted, the puppets are great, the sets and locations are nice, even the CGI isn't totally annoying and offensive. Even shooting on film was a nice touch. But we don't watch these reviews to hear about that kind of crap. Where's my goddamn over-analysis? Plinkett, you spend over an hour complaining about everything but The Force Awakens. It was interesting, entertaining, and you made some good points. But fuck, a goddamn hour? That's time you could have nitpicked this movie like we all wanted. Cause we all know this movie sucked. But instead you chose to leave it to people like Cinematic Rectum, or other self-appointed armchair critics. Like me. So before you watch this review, I suggest you go watch Plinkett's review. Here's a quick synopsis. Now I'd like to take a moment to make a few comments about his points, specifically about the soft reboot. Doing a soft reboot for, quote, just setting the stage is okay with Star Trek to Star Trek because, frankly, the original series was showing its age. And the rest of the franchise, while still good, well, mostly, was running out of steam. The last attempt at a Star Trek show wasn't very good. It was time for a refresh. It worked within the stupid logic of multiple timelines, and it was a pretty good film. Until they ruined everything.
Oh my God, how embarrassing.
But that's beside the point. Star Wars doesn't really fit this need for a soft reboot for several reasons. 1. Keeping with the episode naming convention implies that it's a continuing story, not a rehash of the same crap. The prequels may have had similar rhymes.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
But they were still somewhat different and not blatant rip-offs. Number 2, the original trilogy has stood the test of time. Even by today's standards of special effects, it stands up well. Unlike some other franchises we know. Number 3, setting the stage isn't necessary because the stage was already set by the original trilogy. You can watch all 3 films in a day and be caught up. Unlike Star Trek. Heck, you could even pull a stunt like Lucas did in the 90s by releasing Star Wars to the theaters again, introducing it to a new generation. It'd be cheaper too. That's all I really had to say about Plinkett's review. He just didn't go far enough. Maybe he's just too tired. No wonder he slept for so many years. Or maybe he's selling out to Disney.
I got you, you fuck.
I can't say, but since these nitpicks are better left to Cinematic Rectum, I guess I'll pick up the reins where he left off, because I've got nothing better to do. Well, my friends, it's time to delve deeper. Time to fill in the gaps. It's time for another opinionated asshole to add his voice to the millions of complaining nerds on the internet. Let's begin, shall we?
Here we go again.
Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens is the most disappointing thing since my son's daughter. Let's start with number 1, how the movie begins. No, I'm not talking about the opening shot. No, back up. No. Keep going. There. You see that? What's missing here? The 20th century logo and music is missing. Yep. I'm complaining about this. And if you think I'm a pretentious asshole for thinking this, let me carefully explain why this is important. Number 1, storytelling. Number 2, dynamics. Number 3, setting the mood. There's a phrase you might have heard before. Once upon a time. While this may be an anachronism to our modern, sophisticated, smartphone brains, the concept behind it is so fundamental that it can sometimes be the difference between a story that hooks you in and a story that, well, doesn't.
No, the one I'm pointing to. No.
How you introduce your story is important. Most movies put the studio logo at the beginning, and usually it's incorporated into the film somehow, with music from the film, or even a specifically themed logo to fit the movie. Here are a few examples. Harry Potter, The Matrix, Scott Pilgrim, Tron Legacy, Tomorrowland, Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon, and so on. This is a good trend in filmmaking for these reasons. 1, it incorporates the studio logo in a clever way that is unintrusive to the experience of the film. Number 2, helps introduce us to the tone or mood of the film. Number 3, makes a good transition piece to get us in the movie viewing mode as an audience, having been blasted with all the corporate shit and trailers. Star Wars had its own way of doing this that we're already used to, and I don't like things that are different. It might seem a little old-fashioned, but it does something magical that smoothly gets us in the mood for the movie, and it was intentional. You see, when Star Wars was released back in 1977, before the blue text, the 20th Century Fox theme played over the studio logo and the Lucasfilm logo. The music was composed back in 1933 by a guy named Alfred Newman. In the 70s, the logo and fanfare had fallen out of use, but Lucas loved the fanfare so much that he insisted that it be used, and John Williams, being the musical genius that he is, composed the opening theme to Star Wars in the same key as the fanfare. To make the whole sequence feel complete. And when the fanfare ends, we get this silent anticipation along with the blue text. The silence is made more intense by being bookended by the two similar sounding themes. And from the first chord of the Star Wars theme, we as an audience are hooked. Just from the way it started. You may not have noticed that the fanfare is the real start of the movie, but your brain did. In fact, since its first use in Star Wars, the fanfare has been included on the soundtracks and played as the beginning of many concerts. It's been essentially appropriated by Star Wars. It's a part of it now. This ain't cultural appropriation, it's corporate appropriation. But now that Disney owns Lucasfilm and the rights to Star Wars, they can't just put the 20th Century Fox logo in there. It's trademarked. So instead of doing something clever or passable, they decided to do nothing for the fans.
They looked at the stories and they said, we want to make something for the fans.
The movie now begins with silence. Deafening, boring, jarring, incredibly awkward silence. Followed by the mindfuck of terrible previews. It kills the mood. I guess it's good that we have a moment of silence to respect the dead. Because I died a little inside when I watched this movie. They supposedly didn't show the Disney logo out of respect for the fans.
We want to make something for the fans.
But the lack of fanfare almost seems worse. There's a thing in classical music you might have heard of. It's called dynamics. Basically, it means variation in loudness, and it's used to elicit emotion. Modern music doesn't have this. This is why you don't cry from listening to Taylor Swift. It's all the same crap.
Put it in the machine. I put it in the...
Classical music has lows and highs, softness and loudness. It creates contrast and gives us variety. Filmmaking is similar in this regard. Slow and quiet moments punctuated by fast and exciting moments is what makes movies fun. If all we have is action and loud excitement, we don't have any range of emotion. We get burned out real fast. It's like eating pizza every day. Sure, it's a childhood dream, but after a week, even the biggest pizza lover would get sick of that shit. And don't forget the constipation. And in the same way, badly placed silence can be confusing, irritating, and awkward. Confusing your audience right off the bat can sour their suspension of disbelief. I'm not saying we need fanfares out of tradition, or 'cause I'm used to it, and don't like things that are different, because that's usually the case. They had a real purpose. In olden times, fanfares got your attention. They were used to announce things.
Let's all go to the line.
After the cacophony of previews, we need something to cleanse our movie palate. Something to set the mood and get us ready for the adventure. Something to tell us, hey, the story's about to start, so we can all settle in our seats and stop talking. Yeah, I know you talk in the theater. There's a special hell for you.
The special hell.
Where was I? Oh, right, fanfares. Now, what could they have done to fix this glaring hole? Well, they could have used some parody of the 20th Century Fox logo. Make it Disney with all the searchlights and whatnot. But that might have been too confusing for the corporate executives. Be careful, we don't want to offend the money. I would have even been fine with the regular Disney logo as long as we got the fanfare, or at the very least something similar. Or what if John Williams had composed a new fanfare? I think it would have worked great, with some kind of custom version of the Disney logo, like they do with so many films. Or even just black. I could accept that, along with the new fanfare. But not silence. Without a fanfare, some part of Star Wars is missing. It just feels wrong and weird, like we're watching a fake Star Wars movie.
Something just visually, though, something about it just seemed off to me. For some reason, I kept expecting that to be like a parody ad before the real movie started. I don't know what it was.
I think it's just because they're so used to it. It is corny.
It was weird not hearing the 20th Century Fox fanfare.
That's probably it.
Yeah.
That was probably it.
We just open on silent Lucasfilm logo.
Now you might say,
you're just being pretentious, you fucking hipster. Something like that doesn't matter. What matters is the rest of the movie.
oh, shut up. It's part of what makes the experience of Star Wars Star Wars. I bet you're one of those idiots that enjoyed Rogue One. Is this the worst problem with the film? No, not by a long shot. But is it the first one?
Yes.
On to the real problems with the movie. Number 2, everything else. I have one word to describe the story of The Force Awakens. Lazy. How much more could you possibly rip off the entire original trilogy's story? At first, I thought they were just doing a few nods to the original film, and there were a few good nods in the beginning. I thought to myself, oh, I get it. A droid carrying information. Wink, wink. Nod, nod. But after a while, the similarities became obnoxious and offensive. Were they that unable to come up with an original idea? Another Death Star? What? Did they get a big settlement on the insurance from the last one? Good thing the Empire was smart enough to insure the second one after the first one blew up. Harry went over these things already, so I don't need to repeat them. So many similar plot points. It's like they stuck a bunch of simplified Star Wars elements on cards into a blender and then just copied the plot summary from Wikipedia. From the very first sequence, I knew something was off. Maybe not totally wrong, but off.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Cinematically, I really like the opening scene. But there's so many confusing things that I'm constantly thinking to myself, huh? What? Did I miss something? But I don't really get emotionally invested in the story from the beginning. And from then on, I had trouble getting invested at all. I had so many questions running through my head, like, who's this guy with the beard? Am I supposed to recognize him? He says there needs to be balance in the Force. But wasn't that Anakin's job? I thought the Force was balanced. What am I missing? Why is everyone so obsessed with balance? Just as a note, it's not good to confuse your audience. So let's go over this sequence. After the classic title crawl, we see a planet which slowly is eclipsed by the silhouette of a star destroyer. This is pretty genius in my book. It establishes a theme. The shadow of the Empire is returning to threaten the galaxy, and even the dark side is going to eclipse the light. It's literal and metaphorical. That makes it genius. What isn't genius is how they didn't follow through on this theme. Anyway, a group of similar ships break off and flies towards another planet. They're filled with troopers. A raid! How exciting! And then we cut to a confusing interchange of dialogue that leaves the audience confused and adrift.
This will begin to make things right.
Right? They were wrong? I thought they were right. Did you do something to make them wrong? What? I'm guessing he's the old ally we saw in the title crawl? But really, who is this guy? So the old guy hands another guy a thing and he says,
"The General's been after this for a long time."
We later learn that it's a map to Luke Skywalker, but I'll get to that later. If it's a map though, it seems an odd thing to be after. Wouldn't it make more sense that this clue would be something more like a last known sighting or even a coded message? I mean, if it really is a map that leads anyone straight to Luke, shouldn't Poe say something like, "The General's been searching for Luke a long time"? Because that's really what she's looking for, not some dumb map. Anyway, so troopers come and puts a thing in a thing, and an old guy gets captured by Darth Emo.
Look how old you've become.
Wait, you know this guy too? Why does everyone in the galaxy know who this guy is, but I don't? Would someone please tell me who he is? The movie never told me, so I have no idea.
The map to Skywalker. We know you found it.
Oh, it's a map, is it? How did this guy find the map in the middle of the desert? What's more, how did you know that he had it in the first place? I mean, it's not like this little village is an imperially controlled city full of spies. How did you know the map was here? Is Poe a spy for the Empire? Is BB-8 a spy for the Empire? Over there, is that the script? Maybe it's the Force. Or whatever. Anyway. So old guy dies and then Poe is captured and we get this cringeworthy line.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
How witty. I did like how Kylo Ren stopped the blaster bolt in midair. It showed me two things. One, that this guy was powerful. Perhaps even more powerful than Vader was. And two, that this kid is a real show-off. From his lightsaber design, his mask, And even the ship he came in on, it looked like he was trying to be as evil as Darth Vader, but compensating for something. He probably wants to be Darth Vader, but doesn't have the same gravitas, restraint, or poise. But he is probably quantifiably more powerful. But as we'll later see, this whole character building setup is confirmed and then briskly swept aside for the hero of the movie. Because raisins. Anyway, Kylo figures out Poe had the map, which is more than Darth Vader could do.
The Death Star plans are not in the main computer.
Where are those transmissions you intercepted? What have you done with those plans?
Also, it's kind of boring when your characters don't have any challenges. Vader and the Empire were hot on the heels of the plans the whole time, but it felt like they had to work for it, finding clues and interrogating people. All these wannabes did was land and figure the whole situation out in 5 minutes.
The old man gave it to you.
Without even trying. 'Cause we gotta move this shit along. Nothing to see here, just keep things moving.
Put him on board.
Wait, what? The map's gotta be right here somewhere. If you can sense that the old man gave the map to Poe, interrogate him right now. At least Leia had plausible deniability. This guy had the map at some point. You know this. Chances are it's nearby. Set up a perimeter, scan the surrounding area, search every hut and ship and droid. Don't just throw the guy on your ship, kill everyone and leave. At least Vader had the sense to search the ship.
Commander, tear this ship apart until you found those plans and bring me the passengers. I want them alive.
And at least they were smart enough to realize that.
She must have hidden the plans in the escape pod.
Although they didn't think it was odd that an escape pod with no life forms on it just happened to launch. Don't shoot it, wouldn't want to waste valuable Imperial resources. Anyway, some things happen and I guess that's the sequence. At this point I thought, this looks like Star Wars, but why do I have this nagging feeling in the back of my mind? Why does this feel so wrong? Maybe there was a bunch of rewrites from the committee that made no sense but had to be done to satisfy the corporate heads. That might explain why Poe seems surprised in this scene. Was there something he saw that was cut from the film? We may never know. A lot of this just feels like an amateur screenwriter wrote it. A prime example of this would be number 3. Everything is so convenient.
Magic and coincidences. Oh, look, that's just the Millennium Falcon. It's just sitting there. Oh, we gotta run into Han Solo. Hey, what a coincidence.
Everybody and everything seems to be in exactly the right place, just the right time, which makes no sense at all. Like the map. To start with, why is it a map? This is so dumb. Supposedly there's some uncharted systems, but that doesn't mean they don't know where all the stars are. And why is it a dotted line like a cliché map of buried treasure? If it leads you to Luke Skywalker, shouldn't it be a coordinate rather than a dotted line? How did this map even get to anyone? Did Luke drop it off somewhere on his way to wherever he was going? For someone to follow him? It's incredibly convenient. BB-8 meets Rey. Well, I guess BB-8 came along at just the right time for Rey to find him because the Force knows we can't have something more interesting happen for them to meet. We couldn't say have Rey find BB-8 hiding in some wreckage or maybe buried in sand after months of wandering. It's a rough place for a droid. We could even have Rey spend a lot of time bringing him back to life. It helps develop a relationship with both characters. We got to know them a little more, and we established that Rey is good at fixing things. But nope, she fixes his antenna, which any idiot could do. We gotta move this shit along. Make everything convenient. Han Solo's sudden arrival. Why does Han Solo just so happen to be in the same system the moment the Falcon takes off from Jakku? Did he read the script too? They try to explain it away with a single line of dialogue.
You think it was luck that Chewie and I found the Falcon? If we can find it on our scanners, the First Order's not far behind.
Did anyone ever explain to Abrams that ships usually have some kind of range for scanners?
There's another ship coming in.
Track them. They may come around for another pass. Captain Nida, the ship no longer appears on our scopes. They can't have disappeared. No ship that small has a cloaking device.
Yes?
We've captured a freighter entering the remains of the Alderaan system. Its markings match those of a ship that blasted its way out of Mos Eisley.
Even the first Death Star didn't have scanners that could track the Falcon all the way from Tatooine, and the chances that Han was near Jakku at just the right time are astronomical. It would make more sense that Han would be searching for his beloved ship, and maybe he'd gotten close. Maybe he'd figured out after years of chasing that the Falcon was somewhere on Jakku, but he didn't know where. Or maybe he lost it in Jakku and never left for years. You know, something more interesting than hauling Rathtars? Who would do such a thing? This whole scene was completely unnecessary and kind of stupid, especially since the mistake that Rey made promptly got them out of that tight spot. Rey really is conveniently way too good at so many things that get her and everyone else out of tight situations, and they don't establish any of her abilities beforehand. They don't set it up with character development, and they just explain it away with a single line of dialogue.
I can fix that.
Oh, I can do that. Need a pilot?
We need a pilot! We've got one!
Rey can do that. Need someone to fix the Millennium Falcon in 5 seconds? Rey can do that.
What'd you do?
I bypassed the compressor.
Huh.
Need to accidentally release a Deus Ex Machina to get you out of this showdown? Yeah, Rey's got this. She made just a convenient mistake. Whoops! But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll get into Rey later.
You know how to use one of those?
Back to Han. How did Han Solo know where in the galaxy to be to find his beloved Millennium Falcon and the second Rey and Finn leave orbit? The galaxy's an awfully big place. Fuck, it took all the resources of the Empire several months, if not years, of searching to find the Rebels' hidden base on Hoth. And they really got a lucky shot with that one, too. But Han and Chewie just show up like it was meant to be. Hey Han, who keeps giving out copies of the script? Or maybe it was the Force again.
That's not how the Force works.
Destiny or something. Why was he hauling Rathtars in the vicinity of a ship graveyard planet? You'd think that if Han lost the Falcon, he'd be chasing after it for years. It would have some good symbolism too. Having failed as a father, he goes back to what he knew best, smuggling. But even that isn't the same anymore. He's changed. He's old and can never get back the groove he once had, represented by his ship. He keeps chasing after the ghost of his past, and by getting it back, it would symbolize him getting back in the groove one last time. Before it all ends. And on that point, we didn't get a satisfying moment with Han and his old ship. He just strolls in like he only left it a few weeks ago. You'd think if he's that attached to it, he'd have a moment kinda like in Jedi.
Hey, you awake?
Yeah, I just got a funny feeling. Like I'm not gonna see her again.
Come on, General. Let's move.
Right.
Nope. All we get is this. But it's not enough. It's unsatisfying. Don't care. Gotta move this shit along. Gotta get to the action and the explosions. Speaking of action, what did Han put in the old cereal this morning? He's a better shot in his old age than he ever was in his prime. Oh, I guess we gotta make him a badass. By the way, being a perfect shot isn't what makes a character awesome.
War's not make one great.
Moving on, Captain Phasma. Han and Finn sure got lucky with that one. Out of the entire planet, they managed to find Phasma. Good job, guys. Maybe you can put that luck to good use and find Rey. Wow, how will they ever find Rey on such a massive planet? Oh, wait, there she is. God damn it, why is everything so convenient for you guys? Also, why does Captain Phasma lower the shield so willingly? She's a battle-hardened military commander. You'd think she'd be able to withstand threats and intimidation and deal with a hostage situation by refusing to cooperate, but she gives in easily because the plot required it. Also, why did you guys let her near the control panel? Wouldn't she just alert everyone to your presence? Nope, that would inconvenience our heroes.
Boring conversation anyway.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Delicious things to eat. The popcorn can't be beat. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for. Number 4. Mayor Rey Sue. Rey is a baffling character. When we're first introduced to her, we have some good screen time getting to know her and her daily life. This is good. She's a survivor, a scavenger, and very alone. She has some kind of mysterious past and misses her family. But after this, we get some not so admirable character traits. For example, when Finn grabs her hand, she has such a hissy fit about it.
Come on, we gotta move! I know how to run without you holding my hand!
Made her very unappealing as a character. But at first I thought, well, since this is basically the replacement Luke, he was a whiny teenager too.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Maybe they're just establishing some negative character traits, so she can have an arc. But as time went on, I realized there was probably a different reason for doing this. Because she's a fish that don't need no speeder.
Stop taking my hand!
It became pretty obvious after my second viewing of the film that someone influential in the committee that was rewriting the story had some agenda in mind rather than a good story and likable characters. I'm not gonna say who, but I'm pretty sure I know who it is. What's most baffling about Rey is how despite growing up on a desert planet alone, surviving solely by scavenging ship parts, she seems to know anything and everything convenient to the plot. Somehow she's an amazing pilot, an amazing mechanic, a master repeller and climber, understands Wookiee.
No, it's true. You can understand that thing?
Understands droid.
No!
Can defend herself against 2 robbers who have the element of surprise and strength on their side.
I think I can handle myself.
Is suddenly a master force user as good as Obi-Wan with no training.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
Is suddenly a master lightsaber user, having never seen or touched a lightsaber in her life.
I'm never touching that thing again.
Besting Kylo, who is not only more powerful than Vader, but has also been trained by Luke. An amazing shot with a blaster, having never used one before.
You know how to use one of those?
Yeah, you pull the trigger.
A little bit more to it than that.
So charismatic that everyone loves her and no one makes fun of her or insults her.
Are you offering me a job?
Here are a few examples. She pilots the Millennium Falcon without a co-pilot, ducking and weaving in crazy spaces as tight as the Death Star while keeping the ship entirely intact, setting up amazing shots for Finn, and she can do all of this how? I guess it's the Force again. She fixes a thing on the Falcon in 5 seconds because she knows as much as Han Solo about his own ship. On top of this, she understands Wookiee and droid. Guess who's getting replaced? She uses a Jedi mind trick despite not knowing anything about the Force or how it works or that the mind trick is even a thing. She uses force pull to guide the lightsaber into her hand, having only first heard of the Force earlier in the movie. It took Luke 2 movies to master that trick. She whoops Kylo's ass in the lightsaber fight because she says the Force and closes her eyes.
I whooped Batman's ass. I whooped Batman's ass. I whooped Batman's ass. I whooped Batman's ass. I whooped Batman's ass.
Good thing that giant chasm opened up, otherwise Kylo would have been toast. Or maybe she would have run away anyway. What a chance to show her true character, to make a choice. Does she take revenge? A fledgling Jedi facing the man who killed her new mentor. Boy, does that sound familiar. He's beaten, vulnerable, and she has the chance for revenge. It's a temptation moment for her. Does she choose the dark side, or will she choose mercy? Or will she choose to run? A moment for character development and drama, and oh, well, never mind. Tension gone. You know, this is an interesting missed opportunity. If Luke had known on the Death Star that Vader, the man who murdered his father, was the one who killed Obi-Wan Kenobi right in front of his eyes, don't you think he would have, grief-stricken, gone on a crazy rampage, probably to his death?
Vader? That was Vader who killed him?
Yes.
Vader betrayed the Jedi, and Vader's troops killed my aunt and uncle.
Luke, calm down.
Vader's taken away everything I ever had, and I ran from him. Don't you understand that?
Would this start him down the dark path? This was a similar enough situation with Rey that could have been character defining. In fact, it would have been interesting to see her choose that path, not knowing the dark side from the light. Her ignorance of the Force and her anger and grief could have driven her to the dark side. This is more interesting than the Deus Ex Machina we got. The only really believable things about Rey's skill set is her repeller climber experience, which we see in the beginning and makes some sense, and maybe her technical ability to fix things. But that's kind of a stretch. And really, this should be limited to her just tinkering with stuff, getting smaller things working like droids. In fact, it would make sense that she would have a whole family of droids and a little workshop. It would be like a substitute family for her. You'd think someone that lonely would spend her evening hours doing something.
Goodness gracious me.
Oh my god.
In addition to her obscenely convenient to the plot skill set, is the problem that Rey never makes a mistake that causes harm to the heroes or gets them into any real trouble with real consequences. And of course, everyone is in love with her or wants to hire her.
Got a boyfriend? Cute boyfriend?
None of your business.
I've been thinking about bringing on some more crew, Ray. A second mate, someone to help out. Chewie kind of likes you.
A number of people on the internet have called her a Mary Sue for all this. And they're right. The term Mary Sue comes from a 1973 parody of Star Trek fanfiction. The fan-created character named Mary Sue is overly good at everything she does, has no problematic flaws, never makes any mistakes, and is loved by all the original characters. The parody was meant to satirize unrealistic and badly written characters very common in fanfiction. It has since evolved into a writing term that means a badly written character that is unrealistic, overpowered in the context of the story, and sometimes means the author is inserting themselves into the story as a sort of wish fulfillment. Needless to say, it's not a good character. It's a badly written, amateurish character. As you can see, Rey fits this description. She never really makes any major mistakes, nor is she in any real danger because she quickly gets herself out of it without help from anyone. She did make the mistake of releasing the Rathars, but that ended up working out in their favor, and she quickly saves Finn from them anyway. Like I've said, this whole scene was entirely pointless, a real waste of time that could have been used to develop the characters, but instead it was just an excuse for some excitement.
Well, I like Rey. She's an empowered woman. We need more badass women in movies.
What? No. That's not the point of writing a character. The point is creating a believable person you can relate to. Rey isn't realistic or even likable. At least she has some kind of internal thing going on, but it's so thin and contradictory, it doesn't hold up the rest of her bland character. She needs to fail more, get saved a few times, go through some real hardship, make mistakes. Learn.
Well, if Rey's a Mary Sue, then Luke's a Gary Stew.
What? No. Luke was useless. He gets his ass whooped multiple times.
And you can say Luke is a Mary Sue or a Gary Sue, but he's not. Luke fucking sucks. That's why he's a great character. In the first movie, he can't do shit. He can't do shit. He gets saved by Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Tusken Raiders. Then he gets saved in the bar by Obi-Wan Kenobi again from those creepy guys. Then on the fucking Death Star, he gets saved by Han Solo, and then Princess Leia, and then R2-D2.
And even in the final battle with the Death Star, he had the support of all the other pilots, and even Han Solo. And the trend continues with the other two films. Luke was less whiny, but he still needed saving. Made some bad choices, and even in the end, he couldn't even turn his father from the dark side through his own actions. He's a failure.
I mean, at the end of the movie, he fails. He wins by losing to be saved by his father. You know what would have happened if it was Rey? She would have beaten the guys up in the bar. She would have beaten up the Tusken Raiders. Rey didn't have this because she didn't have stakes. Everything she did worked. That's not a cool character.
But this is what makes Luke such a relatable character. We know his hopes and dreams, what he values and how he makes decisions. He's flawed, but we want him to succeed. He seems real. We relate to him. What does Rey have?
But I have to get home.
Jakku?
I've already been away too long.
Some unexplained excuse to stay on Jakku. We don't know what her hopes and dreams are. We don't know what she values. Well, I guess she was nice to the droid. But why? Characters in Star Wars don't treat droids like people. There's no tension when Rey saves BB-8 from the other scavenger, or when she decides not to sell BB-8. What makes her stop? It's not clear. Number 5. Characters and the mystery box. To explain all this unexplained nonsense, we have to examine a thing J.J. Abrams likes to use. He calls it the mystery box.
Oh, mystery box.
But it's a cheap gimmick.
When I started to think that maybe there are times when mystery
is more important than knowledge.
The tension isn't from the characters we like in high-stakes situations making choices and mistakes. It's just tension in your head because you don't know what the fuck is going on. This isn't interesting or dramatic. It's just annoying. He did this shit on Lost, where they made up all kinds of mysterious crap, wrote themselves into a corner, and ended up letting all the fans down because none of it made any sense or was properly explained.
What the hell's that island? No, seriously, what the hell's that island? What are stories but mystery boxes? Mystery boxes are everywhere. The mystery box, mystery box, the mystery box. Mystery boxes that
It's the same shit with Finn. Why is he defecting? What does he value? His own life? The life of others? He's a conscientious objector when it comes to slaughtering innocent aliens, but has no problem blasting his former comrades in arms to smithereens? Why exactly did he defect? What would motivate him to do such a thing? The movie never tells us.
The mystery box.
Poe's character is flat and uninteresting because he never shows us any character other than a quippy young pilot. He's really only there for plot purposes. Originally, he was supposed to die in that TIE fighter crash.
Originally, Poe was going to die early in the film.
But they brought him back. Why?
And that was the script that Oscar saw. And one of his issues wanting to do this movie was that he had made like 4 movies in which he died early on. And he was sick of dying early on.
A week or so later, JJ wrote me and he said, "I've got to figure out Poe's in the rest of the movie now." And so this idea that Poe comes back was something that was added later.
And you know what else doesn't make any sense? He just abandons his droid on Jakku.
I'll come back for you.
No, you won't. He just abandons his mission and magically reappears at the rebel base. I mean, the resistance base. God, this is so confusing. How did he get back? Did he steal another ship? Did someone come pick him up? None of this makes any sense.
Mystery boxes are everywhere.
And I don't want it explained in a goddamn book. I don't read that crap. I just want a good movie. Is that too much to ask? Anyway, so far a bunch of nerds on the internet are speculating that episode 8 is going to solve all these problems, that somehow the next movie will retroactively make us care about these characters. I don't have much hope for that. Also, I want to briefly talk about Rey's hair. This is utterly impractical. I can't believe she would put her hair up like that by herself. I also don't believe that she kept it exactly the same as when she was a 5-year-old kid. I don't really care for her costume much either. I mean, it's okay, but they had concept art that was different. Why didn't they use that? And why does Rey wrap up tight with a mask and goggles inside the derelict Star Destroyer, where it's dark and hard to see, and then she unwraps outside in the burning hot sun? I know this seems counterintuitive, but when you're in the desert, a good way to beat the heat and the sun is to cover up. The cover provides shade from the sun, and your sweat is whisked away by the clothing and cooled in the breeze. It's Arab air conditioning. When you're indoors, it's best to get off layers so you don't bake in the still air. Also, doesn't she know that hitting a canteen won't get any more water out? It's not like it's soup stuck to the side of the can. Yeesh. I'm also confused by the speeder's design. Why not something a bit more unique instead of Luke's speeder on its side? And why does Rey park so far away? I guess they have zoning rules or something. These are nitpicks left to... Oh wait, I guess they're left to me. Number 6. Exposition that gets the plot moving because we need an excuse to get things moving while also explaining what's happening to the audience. One of the things that really annoys me in this movie is characters talking into a thing to advance the plot and explain what's happening so the audience knows what's going on.
Follow the girl and get that droid.
Call in the airstrike.
Inform the First Order that Han Solo has the droid they want, and it's aboard the Millennium Falcon.
These really stood out to me because they were cheap and lazy, and they didn't make any real sense. Why is Unkar Plot so interested in the droid? Sure, he'll pay for him, but why? Is it really a one-of-a-kind? Or maybe he just wanted another droid to sell on the open market. You'd think if he had the Falcon, he could go anywhere and buy any new droid he wants. Maybe he's afraid the droid will reveal some kind of secret from Rey's past that she's not supposed to know about. Unkar Plot did raise her, supposedly, but his motivation for wanting the droid isn't clear. How is it possible that the First Order and the Resistance both have spies at just the right place at just the right time, and these spies are fully informed as to what the audience knows? Man, the script is just all over the place. No wonder everyone knows everything. Gotta keep this plot rolling. This is all just a bunch of schlock. Number 7. Everything's so shiny. Why is the First Order and everything new and shiny? It's like everything got updated. Sure, the New Republic would have new stuff, but if the remnants of the Empire were scattered and defeated, you'd think they'd be more like the rebels.
Your rebellion's got some great equipment, Princess. No heavy combat ships at all, and every one of those snub fighters is older than you are.
Using 40-year-old ships and holding on to a culture of militarism that's falling apart. They should be using the old TIE fighters and Star Destroyers. Everything would be in disrepair because of lack of resources. All that motivates them would be revenge or survival. Maybe they could turn into pirates, defending small parts of the galaxy, warring with one another for years over who should succeed the Emperor. But the thing that makes them a threat is a leader that bands them together. Well, I guess they had that under Supreme Leader Snoke, but there's no explanation.
Snoke. Do you know Smoke?
Snoke. Supreme Leader Snoke.
What makes him supreme?
But no, everything is refreshed, shiny and new. Maybe if we had a scene where it was explained that the last remnants of the Empire were of no threat to the New Republic, leaderless and scattered in pockets throughout the galaxy. Regional governors vying for power and control, little more than the squabbles of city-states. But then a big reveal would be that, nope, the remnants of the Empire have been rallied under one banner by a new and sinister threat. Maybe that would give Poe something to be surprised about, but that leads me into a different question. Where did they get the money for all these new ships? Or even the resources to build another planet-sized weapon? Did they get a loan from the Space Bank? And for that matter, why is it called the First Order? Or are they all sitting around a table trying to think of a new name for the Empire? And someone said, well, how about the First Order? That sounds like space Nazis. And everyone else basically said, yeah, sure. Moving on to the subject of finances. Why not call it something that makes sense? Call it the Remnant, or the Loyalists to the true Empire. And while we're on the subject of names, the Resistance is such a stupid name. What are they resisting? The whole galaxy? I thought they would be part of the New Republic. Call it, I don't know, the New Republic Fleet. Why the Resistance? I'm so confused. Number 8, unfulfilling character moments. Remember the part at the end when everyone gets back from destroying the 3rd Death Star and Chewie just walks straight by Leia like she's not even there? You'd think there'd be a moment for them to hug. Rey would rush to the infirmary with Finn. Chewie would stay on the ship, wanting to be alone for a moment. But Leia comes into the cockpit. Chewie tries to tell Leia the news that Han is dead, but she cuts him off and says, I know, and they embrace as tears flow. But instead we get Leia and Rey embracing because, why? Sure, they share common grief, but they've never met before. Maybe Leia knows that Rey is her secret daughter or something, and somehow Rey knows too, so they embrace. But we as an audience know nothing. It's not good to have contempt for your audience.
What are stories but mystery boxes? Mystery boxes are everywhere. The mystery box, mystery box, mystery box. Mystery boxes that mystery box, mystery box, mystery box. Mystery boxes that
Number 9, stupid things for stupid reasons. When R2 woke up for no apparent reason other than to complete the plot point about the map, it was insulting at this point. Not only was the map idea stupid because it didn't make any sense, but they had to have a visual that was so idiotically simple to insult my intelligence just to make sure the dumb audience got it. It's a perfect fit. It's like Cinderella, but without the emotional satisfaction or logical explanation. And after this whole thing of getting the map to Luke, you'd think that Leia, not Rey, would be the one to go. Or at the very least, Leia would go with her. But I guess we have to have Rey, the hero, confront Luke even though Leia has been looking for Luke all this time. I must say, I did like the location, Mark Hamill's acting, and John Williams' score for this part. If I had been emotionally invested in Rey's journey, this would have been incredibly moving. But instead it wasn't, and then the film ends. What a cliffhanger! Number 10, Kylo Ren and other stupid-ass speculation. Well, I thought Rey and Finn and Poe to either be annoyingly unlikable, have confusing motivations, or just be flat and uninteresting. Kylo Ren, on the other hand, is the most interesting new character. He actually has some conflict going on inside him. Emotional turmoil. He's got anger management issues, co-worker issues, grandpa issues, daddy issues, and an inferiority complex to round it all out. We also know some of his backstory. Unlike some people we know, he could very well be more powerful than Vader was, but he's chasing after the mythos that Vader left behind, trying to be something Vader never really was. So to fulfill that perceived gap, Kylo compensates by having an over-the-top lightsaber, comically large winged transport ships, a totally useless mask that's only purpose is to intimidate, but underneath he's got some humanity. We also have another mystery box.
mystery box, mystery box.
About Vader's ghost possibly showing Kylo to the dark side, which raises the question,
mystery box.
Is it really Vader's ghost? Or is it Snoke manipulating Kylo? Will we ever find out?
You lied to me, Ghost Wizard!
And with this odd mix of good and bad characters and a shoddy story, where does Star Wars go from here? Well, let's start with the obvious. Rey is probably going to get trained by Luke, because it's destiny or something. The Resistance has now become the de facto Rebel Alliance again because the New Republic has gone. Shabams! And the First Order is probably set to take over the rest of the galaxy again. Kylo and Snoke become obsessed with finding Rey, and maybe they kidnap Finn from the Resistance base on some wasteland of a planet to set a trap for her. Is this sounding familiar at all? Rey, during her training with Luke, will see some kind of vision and be convinced to help her friend. She'll leave Luke against his recommendations and set out to find Finn. Well, Finn will probably either die or be frozen in something, and Kylo and Rey will end up fighting where Kylo is trying to capture Rey. At this point, the true parentage of Rey will be revealed to be Han and Leia, or Luke and someone else. Rey will probably lose an appendage, like an arm or a leg, and then be rescued by Poe for some reason. Is any of this sounding familiar at all? I hope they don't do this, but if they do, I'm going to be super pissed. And their track record so far doesn't give me any hope. Number 11. Similar moments that fall flat emotionally. Many times in The Force Awakens, a similar event happens that is lifted from the original trilogy, but falls flat because of the lack of emotional context. There are many examples, but I'm only going to give you 3. In Star Wars, the Death Star is tested on Princess Leia's home planet of Alderaan, a peaceful planet with no weapons. Leia is forced to watch helplessly as her home and everyone in it she loves is vaporized. In The Force Awakens, a similar thing happens. The First Order fires their weapon that destroys several Republic planets. The difference here is, despite there being more destruction, there's less of an emotional impact because we aren't empathizing with a character like Leia. In Star Wars, Luke watches Darth Vader cut down Obi-Wan, who sacrifices himself to allow the others to escape. This really bums Luke out. His only connection to his family history, his only connection to his future as a Jedi, and his only real father figure is gone. It's a lot for him to take in. In The Force Awakens, Rey watches Kylo Ren cut down Han Solo, who is trying to convince Kylo to stop being evil. This bums out Rey because
You're Han Solo!
I used to be.
He's a war hero, and she somehow knows about him. And he offered her a job that she didn't intend to take. So emotional! In Star Wars, there's a last-ditch effort to exploit the weakness of the Death Star. After several failed attempts, it's down to Luke to make the final run. It's all or nothing. The tension mounts as Vader attacks from behind, and it looks like all might be lost, as Luke has no way to defend himself. But Han Solo returns against his selfish nature and saves the day, clearing the way for Luke to do what only he can do, an impossible shot. In The Force Awakens, there's a last-ditch effort to exploit the weakness of the Starkiller base. After shooting some things that don't seem to do much, Chewie blows the planted explosions that makes a hole in the hexagon thing, which allows Ace Pilot Poe to shoot at a few things inside, get out, and that blows the thing up. How exciting! In each of these examples, Star Wars has clear character-driven or emotional backing to the action and events. In The Force Awakens, we have almost nothing. And this is pretty much the entire movie's story. A blatant rip-off of a better movie, copying elements and scenarios, but not the emotional impact that made them so good in the first place. That, my friends, is the biggest problem with this movie. It's a shallow copy of the original. Even if the original trilogy was a fluke, or they kinda made it work well by sheer luck and cleverness, it's still better than The Force Awakens. In conclusion, what's the overall grade of The Force Awakens? Disappointing. We get some great sets and locations, some fun visual effects, emotional music, and some drama, but for the most part all of that was wasted on weak sauce characters and a rehashed story that doesn't make a whole lot of sense and fails to connect with the audience. Sounds a lot like the prequels, doesn't it? I had high expectations for this film, and perhaps that's unfair. But it's hard not to expect something amazing and spellbinding when the trailers were so goddamn good. But in the end, the trailers turned out to be better than the movie. That seems to be the case for Hollywood these days, so maybe I shouldn't expect anything else. Because of its weak story and flaccid characters, it comes off amateurish and lazy despite the amazing visuals and sound. A lot of people worked really hard on this film, only to be mucked up by a committee of people who don't understand characters and story. In short, The Force Awakens will go down as the most expensive fan film in the history of Star Wars, until a new challenger arrives. Don't hate me cause I'm right. Leave a comment on the video on how wrong I am. Also, don't forget to thumbs up the video and subscribe and buy my t-shirts and donate them on Patrons and the visits to the web zone and so on, cause it makes me money. I'm a sellout and I'm not ashamed. Everyone's entitled to my opinion.